It's another Fairfolk Friday, and today we're going to talk about the Kallikantzaroi. This is a Fairfolk goblin-like creature from the Mediterranean regions, predominantly Greece, Siberia, and Albania. They are known to ride chickens and therefore be particularly small Fairfolk, but are nonetheless incredibly destructive. While coming in a variety of forms in their artwork, they are generally seen to be small, ugly creatures that often have the ears of donkey, malformed teeth, and the legs of goats. Predominantly, their activities are associated with the nighttime, and especially around Christmas. In some regions, it is believed that they effectively are underground and they try to hollow out the tree that holds all of the world together. But during the winter solstice or Christmas time, they come out to wreak havoc to the local populace. Now, specifically in Turkey, these creatures are heavily associated with vampires and werewolves, which may explain some of their weaknesses and their association with only coming out at night. Specifically, one of their weaknesses is to leave a colander on the outside of your door at night because they will be compelled to count the holes in the colander. And these creatures are supposedly cannot count to 3, which is a reason that the number 3 is a sacred number in some of these regions, leaving them to attempt to count the holes in the colander until the sun comes up and they go away. These creatures can also be bribed in a certain way with food, particularly a local dish that is effectively a donut filled with syrup and sausages, and if that is left on the roof, they will devour the meal and leave your house alone. This is a very bizarre but fun to think about Fairfolk. Thank you for watching. It's another Fairfolk Friday. The Befana comes by night, with her shoes all tattered and torn. She comes dressed in the Roman way. Long live the Befana. So today we're going to talk about the Befana, or the Christmas witch of Italian folklore. Some sources seem to disagree on exactly what she is, a lot of them saying that it's just an old woman that knows magic, others saying that she's actually a Folletti or an Italian fairy. A lot of lore seems to connect her to the 3 wise men of Christian mythology, while there are many others that seem to connect her to some pre-Christian myths. But a lot of her lore is based around the fact that she gives good children presents and bad children coal or possibly dark candies, which I assume is black licorice, going house to house on her broom to do so, where she is left wine and sausage. It's another Fairfolk Friday, and today we're going to talk about a type of Welsh dragon, the Gwiber. Gwiber singular and Gwiber odd and plural. And while today the term Gwiber refers to certain native species of snakes, in much older literature, Gwiber seems to refer to a type of multicolored flying dragon. Most instances seem to record it being on average about 24 feet in length. However, truly ancient specimens of this Fairfolk can be up to 40. It being a fearsome creature that has retractable fangs with a deadly poison that will kill you in minutes. They prefer high humidity environments such as caves and woodland areas and swamps, especially if it is by either a source of fresh water or areas of large livestock. They prefer to eat fish, chickens, and livestock in general, and their attacks against humans seem to primarily be more of a territory dispute. Sightings of this creature are still said to happen, however it is rumored that the noise that comes from Cardiff National Airport keeps them at bay and hidden underground. It's another Fairfolk Friday, and today we're going to talk about the Nicnevin of the Guy Carlin. There are multiple variations to both of those names. I'm simply using the ones that I believe that I am pronouncing correctly. But the Nicnevin is a figure of Scottish folklore, particularly a fairy queen of Fife. It was also heavily associated with spinsters, and it was often said that it was unlucky to leave any unfinished work still on the wheel on New Year's night, because she would come and take them. This appears to still be a little bit of folklore, that it is unlucky to do so, although she is no longer directly connected to the myth. It seems to be the origin. It was also believed that if you ever met the Nicnevin, that you could ask for effectively a blessing to be really good at the spinning wheel, any kind of yarn work, things like that. And you would indeed be blessed to put out at least 3 times as much as your local competition. And throughout time, she seems to have gained quite a lot of associations with witchcraft, specifically that her name seems to be a general term to refer to witches, as well as she herself is possibly seen as being a local version of the Kalliak or some other type of hag. Alexander Montgomery, who was one of the court poets to King James VI of Scotland, I believe it was the 6th anyway, also seems to reference her to specifically being associated with Hecate or Hecate herself. During a fighting match with another court poet, Alexander Montgomery goes as far as to say that his opponent was effectively adopted by Nicnevin as a baby when he was willingly given away to Nicnevin and her nymphs. And like many fairies of folklore, she also seems to have a dark side attached to her, including being something of a cannibal. It's another Fair Folk Friday, and today we're going to talk about Jenny GreenTeeth. Now, if you're across the pond somewhere in the UK, you might have heard about this one from a nursery rhyme, also called Wicked Jenny or Ginny GreenTeeth, and they seem to be a specific local variation of Grendylows from Liverpool in southwest Lancashire, primarily residing in the upper branches of trees in watery locations, generally pools by the river's edge. As her name implies, she is given a hag-like appearance in the form of long green fangs. The nursery rhyme specifically stating that she drowns mostly disobedient children, sometimes elderly folk, and is oftentimes covered in pondweed or duckweed, and is perhaps related to another hag-like figure, the Peg Powler. It's another Fair Folk Friday, and today we're going to talk about the Ankou. Death, judgment, cold hell. When man thinks about it, he ought to shiver. The Ankou is a fair folk from Breton folklore whose legend spread across the other Celtic areas and in areas of Norman France. The Ankou is a often shrouded Grim Reaper-like figure that is often seen carrying either a scythe or a hammer with the capacity to either give life or death, often accompanied by either a cart or a wheelbarrow. Often either the cart or the barrow will be filled with stones, and if you can hear them drop during a funeral, that means that the Ankou has collected a soul. As with many figures of oral tradition, there are many versions of the Ankou. The most prevalent seem to be that it is either the first person buried in the year to watch over a parish's buried ones, making sure that they cross over appropriately, etc., or the last person buried from the previous year to do the role. A guardian and guide for the deceased, however, is an ill omen if seen by the living. But this ill omen is never done maliciously, it being believed that if the living see the Ankou, it is the Ankou giving them a warning so they have time to put their affairs in order before he comes to collect. And while most often in art represented as male, and more than likely I've referred to them as a male, it is because of the type of figure it is and that there are multiple, women can also be Ankou. Interactions with Ankou are said to be fair, but strict. They follow rules given to them, and they make sure that those rules are followed. Everything that I've read does not state a way how to ward them off, which implies that it is impossible to do so, and many of their legends would seem to confirm that. It is said even in Ireland that whenever an Ankou arrives, it does not leave empty-handed. Thank you for watching. It's another Fair Folk Friday. There is a long-standing tradition in a lot of places of fair folk giving warnings of bad weather. Sennen Cove in Cornwall is no different. With their own fair folk, the Hooper of Sennen Cove, also called the Whooper of Seven Cove. On non-foggy days dating as far back as the Middle Ages, a mist would appear in the water as a warning that a storm is coming in from the Atlantic. From this mist, there can be a very dim light, and the sound of Whooping or whooping can be heard from it, not dissimilar to the sounds of certain owls. Those who attempted to go beyond the mist would either feel compelled to go back or would just meet resistance and couldn't. However, on occasion, a fisherman and his son would be able to find his way through. However, they would not be seen again, and the Hooper would not give another warning for quite a few years. Thank you for watching. It's another Fairfolk Friday, and today we're going to talk about the Zorza. Zorza, there are 3 of you. She of morning, she of midday, she of evening. Take from my child the crying, give him back his sleep. The Zorza are figures from Slavic tradition. I'm using, or attempting to use, the Polish pronunciation. However, there's a lot of different spellings and pronunciations. Depending on the myth, they are the sisters of, or the daughters of Dazbog, who was the personification of the sun, and are his protectors, the Zorzas of dawn and the evening star opening the doors for the sun, and then the midnight Zorza closing the door for him. And while related to, were not necessarily considered gods themselves. However, were considered guardian spirits of various things, especially children.